Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. We talked about the skill gap in the game right now earlier today, but there were some serious skill issues on display this evening. Some absolute slamages on the final day of CDL matches this year. Some of them expected potentially, some of them maybe less so. Loads of storylines to dive into today. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. So straight away we got some really cool news I thought with Shift stepping away today to do the COD Mobile World Championship. We might discuss a bit of that tomorrow just because I'm sure the map set they played on today was rather better than what the CDL pros played on. But that meant that with Shift out for the day, they needed somebody to replace him, which is... It's kind of a, look, Bryson Tunn did a great job today. Fair play to them stepping in and killing it. But, they were meant to be there this season, if not for the budget issues or whatever the CDL came up with. They were told they were going to be there. And then like 6 days, whatever, before the CDL, they were told, yeah, actually, so we'd have the money for you guys this year. And so effectively, they hired Maven and Merc instead in some ways because they haven't done the online matches for some time. This time they are. So... kind of, they got replaced by Maven and Merc in some ways. Not really by Shift, because Shift was Study's replacement, or Lando's replacement, sorry, alongside Study. But still, if I'm Bryson Tunn, I'm like, come on, guys, can you bring me back at least? But it's nice to see. And I think Bryce said it might not be the last time either, so maybe there's some other plans in the works as well. So yeah, Bryce was back on the stream, and then Tunn came on for the third match of the day. But this first game, man... honestly, I know we predicted a Giga Chokeslam, but this was the Giga Chokeslam of the season so far. Gotta be one of the most dominant series of the last couple of seasons. OpTic are warming up. There's no doubt about it at this point in the CDL this season. And Ravens, look, they looked good in the first 3 or 4 days of scrims. But outside of that, it's not been great, and this team, again, this is the problem you have with many of these teams, and the reason why Los Angeles Guerrillas deserve a fair bit of praise, as we'll discuss here in a couple of seconds. Many teams, they try and find the best pieces they can realistically get from challenges, or even from CDL rejects or players that are on the borderline of getting in and out, and they'll just kind of put them together with a great leader such as Clay, and just see if it works. And maybe it will work in time. But right now it ain't working. And OpTic are a team that you just simply don't want to play at the moment if you're not a very top team. I mean, the Skid Row was just a bloodbath. Okay, early on it was like 90 to 90, but it always felt like at some point OpTic were just going to string together a break in a rotation, and that was going to be GG. And GG it was. One of the more dominant, really, Skid Row hardpoints we've seen so far this season. Dashy, by the way, had a 2.3 KD. That's the highest KD we have seen in a hardpoint this season. I'm not going to say in every video that in Dashy's first series I said that, he's going to get better from here and much better from here. And, I mean, every series I think Dashy's got better than OpTic have played. They went from losing 3-2 to a couple of 3-1 victories, and now a slammage. Now, you might say, okay, the slammage isn't that impressive. It's against Ravens, and they kind of look like the worst team in the league right now on their evidence today. They did win a series against Vegas, but that's the only 3 maps they won. The other 3 series Ravens have played, they've won 0 maps. They got 3-0 by Miami, 3-0 by Scrappy in Toronto, and now 3-0 by OpTic. So, not a great sign for them, especially when we get GodRx dropping the 7, right? So here it comes, 7, Doug, GodRx, that's what you're giving me. These were the numbers. I mean, Dashy had a 2.3, GodRx 7 in 17. Clay dropped some big damage. Gwyn tried his best this series, but it simply wasn't to be. Kenny as well, man. This guy on this Skid Row is such a nightmare, isn't he? The way he plays, that P2 rotation especially, so good every time. And like Pred and Shotzzy, they turned up in other parts of the series here. But yeah, GodRx with 7, not the best start, especially when he had, was it 2 in the S&D, 2 or 3 in the S&D? Especially when, right, GodRx, look, there's obviously a difference between slamming Doug and Pentagram. Okay, I don't mean to disrespect those two guys, but you know what I mean. Challenges players, it's a different level, right? You can have great stats in challenges. You come to shoot against Brucey, and it ain't quite the same story. And I'm mad about it as well because, my fantasy team is getting cooked here. I got GodRx in my fantasy team, and it ain't looking so pretty at the moment because, yeah, it kind of got slammed today. And I think I was watching the Zuma watch party or whatever, and I think it was Ben that said, or somebody said that, their ARs just get slammed every series. If you've got Clay, you know what Clay's going to get you. He's not going to put up crazy numbers like he used to in his career, but he's going to be important for the team. He knows what he's doing, and he's going to damage deal. But you absolutely need your other AR if you've got Clay to do the slaying. Same with Minnesota, right? If you've got accuracy, you need Big Wake to slay out hard. And if he doesn't, you're probably going to get fried, like Rocker are doing. And it's the same story in some ways what Vegas had last year. as long as Temp does well enough, they'll be okay. But if Temp doesn't have a good series, or if you don't have a player that can slay like Temp can slay, you're going to run into problems. So Dashy already set the record for the highest hardpoint KD of the season, and then he did the same for the Search and Destroy. The Search again wasn't that close. Okay, interesting couple of early rounds. I know that there was a moment where GodRx could probably have got a kill that he didn't eventually get, but frankly it didn't really matter because OpTic just ran away with this. Just so much aggression. We know that OpTic have been working on these things. It was just 4 individuals really playing on Carolina, and it was an actual team playing on OpTic Texas. And when there's also a skill disparity, it's just so GG. As I said earlier today, right, it's kind of rare, I think, we get series this dominant at the start of the season. These are usually the type of series you expect Major 3, Major 4, Major 5, but we're getting them literally week 2. So I think some of these teams just kind of cheeks, to be honest, but I think some teams are seriously good, and there is a skill gap in this game. But also, as Octane says, there's also a skill issue in this game for some of these teams right now. So Dashy does it again, 8-2 in the Search, 5 kill streak, 8 untraded kills. Pretty sure he only had 3 kills in the entire series that were traded. So like basically 45 of his kills or something, 44 of his kills out of 47, I don't know, whatever the numbers are, were untraded. And only like 3 of them were traded. So that's kind of partly on Dashy, but that's also partly on Ravens. Like, what are you doing? You know, do we want to get a trade or do we not? It's okay. So Prid then decided that it was his time to shine. And there was some, I don't want to say stat padding because they're just playing, you know, they're getting kills, they're winning the game. It's control at the end of the day. You're here to play for stats. But if there's any game mode that Prid is going to thrive in, it's situations like this. Playing against a weaker team. Prid's just absolutely loving life. He's rolling around, getting all the kills. And yeah, we got another iteration of this Shotzzy meme. I didn't do anything today, says GodRx. GodRx then says, didn't even spawn in that series. No excuses though. Played terrible those last 4 games. Gotta do better. But this is a tough one, right? I mean, I look at a couple of these teams and I think, are they already chalked? Like, are they going to ride it out? Are they going to ride out the wave? Are they already going to think over this Christmas, New Year's break about potentially could they consider a change? Because, look, Clay says what they're doing in practice is better, and we always know about, well, every team's godlike in practice, nobody can translate it, you guys know how it is, but, you know, Clay wasn't happy at all. We know how Clay operates, we know things aren't going well for Clay and the Ravens guys, it's going to be bad in the comms, it's not going to be good vibes, that's how it goes. And sure, where Clay is in his career at the moment, these are the types of teams he is on, but I don't know if I can imagine Clay's doing this much longer at this rate and with all the learnings clearly that Ravens have to do. So I don't know what the future is for this team. I'm sure we'll talk about them in more detail, but you know, also got to give credit to OpTic, right? I mean, Pred comes out with and absolutely slams them, drops the LeBron on the Heat here as well, which is pretty funny. We know LePred, right, was going around, and apparently Pred has fully embraced this now and keeps talking about it with the other OpTic boys. I will say for OpTic, it really does feel like they're a team. I think this is the best OpTic iteration in the CDL era. I said that before the season started, and I definitely think it now on the evidence I've seen over these last couple of series, because they're not just individuals on this team. Like, you listen to the comms, you see how OpTic like operate outside of the server. This team is just really good, and they're actually a proper team, which I don't think has always been the case for OpTic over the last couple of years. So Pred absolutely slamming, right? And I mean, have a look at this. 4 different KD records set in a single series of the season so far from the OpTic side. Dashy had a 2.3 in the hardpoint, Dashy had a 4 in the control, or in the search and destroy, sorry. Pred had a 2.7 in the control, and Dashy overall had a 1.84 for the series, which is the highest so far, eclipsing Ilya, I guess, his numbers earlier on. There was also a bit of drama because I think someone threw a smoke in the control that I don't know if we saw it on the stream, but whatever the case was, didn't matter at the end of the day. Again, it was kind of toasting them forward as well. So just look at the numbers. It's not pretty on the Ravens, not gonna lie. GodRx at a 0.49, Real at a 0.52, Claire at a 0.6. I mean, 0.4, 0.5, 0.6. It's not gonna rate well. Gwyn has a 1. But also from OpTic's side, I mean, we've seen a few scoreboards this season from OpTic that are pretty ideal, but this is another one. I mean, 46, 46, 46, 45. Like, it doesn't get that much more of an even spread than that. You've got Shotzzy with the most engagements right on the team, which is kind of what you'd expect. Dashy has a 1.8. I mean, Kenny has a 1.5. Like, Pred's got a 1.4. What more do you want at this point? And Kenny dealing some serious damage as well. So yeah, no doubt OpTic are in a great position at the moment, but that wasn't the only slammage of the day. We had Subliners stepping in for the Guerrillas guys to actually kind of run their socials, because they haven't done any tweet in, like, basically since, they sometimes announce players, but they've done no tweets about matches, and this was the time to potentially do it, right? They're coming in against the Los Angeles Thieves, a team that they have dominated head-to-head in the matchups over the last couple of years. Thieves have been cooked by Guerrillas most times they've played in the CDL. It's like, I think it was 5-1 going into this series, and we now know the outcome. It was a sub-base bang-out game one. They had double 40 bombs, I believe, here in the end from Fame and DiamondCon. Both dropped 40, which was kind of absurd. But, look, it's sub-base. This stuff kind of happens. But the Search and Destroy was very interesting, and I watched this and I was thinking, like, again, Thieves, are they in a position where this team is already not going to last to the end of the year? Just watching the way this went, especially the way they lined up there for Fame, I think at the end of this map too, you could see that Ghosty, as he tends to be, visibly frustrated. I don't know how happy JoeDeceives was about that situation as well. And it feels to me that a loss like this is maybe indicative of a wider issue with Thieves, especially when we've had a good few series now. The big question I would say for Thieves this season was, is Cammy going to be back? Like, because Cammy was the most questionable pickup. Like, I didn't mind. I thought Afro was a good pickup. I liked the Ghosty pickup. I kind of liked the JoeDeceives pickup. The Cammy one, I like Cammy. I wish he was great again. But it's not been the case for the last couple of years, and he had to prove, and Thieves had to prove they made the right call, rather than getting a guy like aBeZy, right? They could have gone for aBeZy and Linz, possibly, and that probably would have been a good idea, but they didn't get that done for whatever reason, and now they've got Cammy, and he's not really performing, right? They go game 2, round 11 here, Assault versus Ghosty. Assault clutches the 1v1, takes them to, and they made a bit of a comeback here as well. It was looking good for the Thieves guys at some point. DiamondCon then came into this control and made a great clutch in the round 1, and Thieves were just, they got slammed here. And I've got to say, Guerrillas, massively impressed with these boys. And again, it's an actual team, There's a few teams right now, teams in the league, that don't feel like teams. They feel like 4 individuals. They feel like the best 4 individuals that the team thought they'd be putting together. But look, do Guerrillas have the most talent in the league? No. But do they have some of the better teamwork in the league? I would say yes at the moment. We saw what they did against the Subliners. That was competitive. We could talk about the fact that they should have won that series, but that was no fluke, right? They're playing good Call of Duty. Do I expect this to last forever? Often at the start of the season, you get teams that have better chemistry, better teamwork than most others, and they look as good then as they're ever going to look. And that might be the case with Guerrillas. Over time, they might start to struggle more, but this is why Parasite says that if you are a lower tier team like Guerrillas, at least with the budget they now have, it's better to sign a team of challengers that have actually played together than get randoms, like good players, but hoping that they work. Because if you actually want to be some sort of a successful team, the chemistry is more valuable than some of the individual talent these other teams have. And teams like Guerrillas will just, they'll slam, at least right now, teams like Vegas and Ravens and, even as much as Thieves. And there's probably some similarities between the two teams I mentioned and the way Thieves are presently looking. So it's still early days. And it's not like they don't have talent, because DiamondCon I thought was great here. I've always been a big fan of Assault. I think it's been a great AR for some time. And SGL played well. Fame, when Fame has a monster series, it's tough to look past these guys having a really good result. And obviously there was a bit of fun back and forth between Drazah and TJ here on like the LA versus LA Thieves versus LAG, but the rivalry does kind of speak for itself. And even this, right, to Enable, you guys remember when they formed this questionable team and Enable was like, this coach, no idea what he's doing, these guys are terrible. Obviously a bit of reaction to that. And even the coach himself comes out with a Jose Mourinho, like a many men gif here. Okay, maybe you want to save this one for when you win a major or something rather than just winning one league match. But nonetheless, it's a great result. And it is cool for these guys proving some other haters wrong so far. Like, it's still only the first part of the season, but I think that they've shown that their model, what LA Guerrillas have tried to do, is actually more successful, at least in terms of what they're trying to achieve, than what other teams are doing. Is their ceiling any higher than top 6? I'm not yet convinced, but I think they're in a really good position right now. These are the overall numbers as well. Another slammage. And we were on the verge of a back-to-back 3-0. I'm pretty sure here at this point, because there was a 3-0 Toronto versus Ravens, another 3-0, and then another 3-0, and the numbers aren't pretty either. And, Cammy 0.72. These are the questions that you've got to raise. So to close out what might just have been the fastest day in CDL history, as I said, we were on a bit of a 3-0 streak, but I thought that if there was going to be a 3-0 in this final one, it was not going to be to the team that eventually won this series. We've seen that Thieves, they beat Boston the other day. They looked good in that series for sure. They kind of crushed them, but now they look questionable today. Boston, though, finally showed the signs of life that I was expecting for this team before the season began. Because their SMG duo is so good that even when their AR duo is having a bit of a hard time, they can make it work because of the talent these guys have. Snoopy and Capsidal, so much fun to watch, and if the ARs put together a decent series, they've got lots of potential, this Boston team. So this series was really impressive. I probably ultra went into this one thinking they'd get the dub. I don't know if there was complacency that set in, but I don't imagine they thought Boston would be this competitive going into this series. So it was a 1-0. It was actually Terminal hardpoint game 1, but we kind of know Terminal can go either way. We know how it tends to go on this map. It's very rotation heavy, so I wasn't reading too much into this game 1, but when Snoopy started dominating the search and destroy, just running rings around them basically, and then Capsidal closed out the search with an ace in the final rounds to take a 6-3. We then went to a high-rise control where there were some crazy moments. I mean, CleanX, I was singing this guy's praises just this morning, and he gets absolutely spun on here by Capsidal. Absolute scenes. Envoy had a really rough time in this map as well, and it wasn't even close. I mean, Boston won the first rounds. They then closed out a pretty tight defense, and they won another offense. Now, the final round was kind of absurd, actually, because it was Slasher ended in a 1v1 against Inside, which was a 1v4 for Inside. He gets 3, and then finds himself in a 1v1 against Slasher. Slasher goes for the Chal, guns him to close out the 3-0, because I was thinking, man, if Boston go up 2-0 on Toronto and lose the series in the manner we've seen before, because there's been a few breakdowns in Boston, right, especially the search and destroy they lost against Thieves just the other day. If they lost in that way, I don't know if there's any safe with this Boston team, but, you know, this is the potential that we saw in Boston before the season began with the theoretical roster, and they become the first team to take down a theoretical top 4 team. I guess if you had to predict which team would be the first to take down any of OpTic, FaZe, Toronto, or New York, you'd probably have said Boston, because I thought they were going to be the 5th best team coming into the year, but I didn't think they'd be that good immediately, and look, it's just one series, but this is showing Boston what they can do when they play to their potential, when Snoopy and Capsidal are on point and the ARs are delivering the goods as well, and when they, again, when they feel like a team, which it looked like they were today, much more than so far in the season, all of a sudden things are working out in these guys' favour, and they've got the talent to back it up as well. So that's the reason why people were high on Boston before the season began. They're a team with the potential to do this type of stuff to a team like Toronto. But you've got to say, how poetic is it that Scrappy throws up these 3-0s literally this time yesterday, pretty much, and then here we are today with, you know, some interesting, well, Photoshop jobs, of course, you could do as a result of this. Another 3-0 to close out the year. I mean, a third year of COD to close out like this was remarkable, and lots for Toronto to think about exactly how this happened over the coming days, because Envoy had a .48. So, yeah, I think he had like 22 kills over 2 maps of respawn. Not ideal, but, you know, Snoopy had a 1.4, and Priestahh, big bounce back after some questions raised about him the other day. So, you know, the narratives are going to flip-flop every single series, but this is exactly the way Boston wanted to end their year. They move now to 1-3 and put themselves in with a decent chance of trying to make winners bracket of their home major. But lots of talking points we went through today. Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.